Welcome to week 2 of the Hollis Scream series that we're doing.
That was good.
Thanks, Brandon.
You're welcome.
Today we are going to talk about The Packerhaus Method by Gene Wolfe. Now, Jake, how many times have you read The Packerhaus Method by Gene Wolfe?
Can't say that I have, actually.
Well, Brandon, why don't you explain The Packerhaus Method by Gene Wolfe to Jake?
Okay. Let me do this. It's very short. You start out with a salesperson in a old woman's house with her husband, right?
Yeah.
Or is her grandfather?
Something like that.
Some relation.
Wait, is this the story where she slowly realizes that she too is dead, but undead and nailed to the floor or whatever?
Oh yeah, you got it.
Yeah. I was on a car trip once and a friend read this to me.
That's the story.
Oh, he read this whole thing to you?
Yeah.
So you have read The Packerhaus Method.
You get your...
You lied to me.
I didn't remember.
I mean, it's the kind of story that definitely sticks with you.
It was read to me.
There you go. I'm surprised you didn't crash your car out of
their
sheer
brains have
terror.
been ossified
Yeah.
in resin so that you can't form new memories.
Mm-hmm.
And they have
It's
outside
like this guy
ways.
just wandering around the house on a treadmill or on a track.
Trying to light his cigar.
Trying to light a cigar.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
So they've been preserved, but, this story deals with deep questions about consciousness and what makes us alive.
You said that with such sincerity.
I mean, it's...
Sincerity?
No, yeah, sincerity. So I get it that this is just not my genre of literature. And we're going to talk about this a lot more with 1984, because I get it that you have different types. You have the... not type of person, but types of literature. You have the types that are more character-driven and more style-driven. And you also have the others that can still be style-driven. They can still be written pretty well, and I'll give that to the Packerhaus rules. The obvious are the Packerhaus, whatever, not the Cider House. That's what I'm thinking, the Cider House rules. The Packerhaus method.
Yeah.
Yeah. He obviously can write well.
Mm-hmm.
But the literature that's driven by ideas above character just isn't what I like. And so this definitely has an idea that it wants to get across, and that's the idea that, are we human when we've lost all of our natural biological functions? Where does consciousness reside? Are we still conscious? Are we still human? Or do we become monsters in that case if we try to preserve our bodies and put our consciousness in another mechanical form? It's dealing with the whole robot. Can you put your mind in a computer and still be a human? It's definitely, what do they call it? It's dealing with those, but there's a fancier word. It's definitely
those. It's interrogating.
It's interrogating those questions, it's capitalizing on those things. There's still a word that's escaping me, but still.
Inscaragating?
Inscaragating, there we go. That's the word I was looking for. It's definitely inscaragating those concepts and ideas, and it's very straightforward, and it's also generally those stories that are driven more towards the punch or the moment at the end where you see everything kind of coalesce, like in 1984.
Yeah.
Like we'll talk about. It has that ending where, he has the tears, but he does love Big Brother. So...
Spoiler.
Yeah, spoiler for anybody who's still reading that book. It does that just fine. It does it fine. Like I said, he's a good writer. And so I'm trying to turn a new leaf here, Nathan. I'm not going to hate on it. Instead, I'm just going to make the point that obviously this kind of story is not for me. And so I'll leave it to others who obviously the story is for and like it to make comments about it. I'm not going to belittle it. I'm not going to tear it down. I'm going to let it exist.
Very generous.
Does that sound good to you, Jake?
yes.
Okay.
Jake gave it a moment's thought.
I had to let the heart speak.
Well, the friend that read Jake this story, I dare say, was Ben Sulzer of Sound of Sanity fame.
True.
Because Ben is a huge Gene Wolfe fan.
You dare say.
I dare say. And
yeah, we were on a trip up to hang with some of our Wisconsin friends. Jane Katie or Cold and Love Cheese we got to see, and some others.
So he read this to pass the time.
Yeah.
There you go.
Lucky.
Nathan did say dare say because Ben is lurking in the corner right there with a handgun pointed at us all. So that is coloring everything we're saying right now.
It required a great deal of daring to say.
Yeah, it did. It did. But, I'm willing to take one for the team. And by one, I mean a bullet from Ben Sulzer. Gene Wolfe is a colossal giant of... I'm just going to give a little Gene Wolfe context because it will make Ben happy. Gene Wolfe is the person that Ursula Le Guin said was our Melville. The Melville of... the supernatural, fantasy, sci-fi, speculative fiction crowd. And he is a colossal genius of 20th century letters. He really is. Anybody that actually knows his work, whether they're a sci-fi fan or not, would agree with me. He wrote something called Book of the New Sun, which everybody acclaimed as the new Tolkien thing. Like they were like what Tolkien did in the 70s, this did in the 80s. Nobody's heard of it though, because it's really dense and really elaborate and really hard to follow. And it is in fact as difficult or more difficult than like a Melville or even like a James Joyce or something like that. It's full of illusion and unreliable narrators and crazy conceits and traveling through time. And
have you read it?
Yeah, I have. And I like it a lot. I think it's a masterpiece. It's also pretty sick in its way. It's about a dystopian world hundreds of thousands of years in the future where the sun is dying. Society has regressed into this sort of medieval state. There's just neat stuff there's little puzzles for you to find. Like the whole novel, they're in towers, and at a certain point, if you're paying attention, because he never actually connects the dots for you, but if you're paying attention, you realize these towers are actually just spaceships that aren't used anymore. At a certain point, he walks past a picture in a gallery of something from thousands of years ago, and it's like a knight standing on a desolate rock, and Gene Wolfe never actually spells this out for you, but again, if you're paying attention or if you Google it and find out what all the neat things are, it's the famous picture of Buzz Aldrin standing on the moon. So he does really fun things like that for nerds. And so it's some of the best.
Does he describe it in such a way that you could figure out that it's Buzz Aldrin?
Yeah, but it's described by someone who doesn't know what space travel of that type is. Someone just describing like a knight on a rock. Yeah. With a face shield or something. I don't know. So Gene Wolfe does stuff like that. It's really elaborate. It's one of those books. It has a little bit of like anyone that thought that they were impressed by Tenet, because I won't beat up on them too much because I know some of our friends were impressed by Tenet. But if you want to actually read somebody that really does something interesting with all that kind of time is looping back on itself and actually you were your own father and all that kind of crap, Gene Wolfe does it way better than just like saying that Melville does it better than Ron Howard. So there's a little snobbiness for you.
Always love that snobbiness.
Yeah, sorry. I guess I am. When it comes to speculative fiction, maybe I am a snob. What's this maybe?
Somebody's got to be.
Somebody's got to be. Gene Wolfe is a colossal genius. You might start with his novel. He wrote a novel, which is actually 3 novellas called The Fifth Head of Cerberus. You
also could not.
You could start there. Brandon is right. If you don't like literature of ideas, if you don't care for ideas, then, if you don't like thinking, if you don't like beautiful prose, if you don't like really having to read in a deep and engaged way, but just like fluff, like Tolstoy, then, Gene Wolfe's not for you.
If you're tempted to confuse intricate and clean style with beautiful style. Mm-hmm. This was a fine story, and I don't think that I've read enough Gene Wolfe to even pass judgment on. I thought about making you guys read some more Gene Wolfe. Maybe we will someday. He actually is worth the Bookening doing, I would say. Okay,
but
he is definitely a blind spot.
Give me a copy of Fifth Head of Cerberus. I've never gotten around to read.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that.
Maybe we should add it in. I mean, he's such a blind spot that a lot of what you're saying right now is new to me. I didn't even realize he was this significant of a figure.
He's very significant. At least among...
Because I'm snobbish in the opposite direction, that all of my knowledge of modern literature is like the stuff that the Academy has determined and defined as like the great... So Thomas Pynchon, those guys. Don DeLillo.
Yeah.
But Gene Wolfe would have been right there with them, apparently. And I've not even thought of him as in the same category. So... And it's not because I'm looking down on him. It's literally because I have not heard this before. So There we go. I'm learning something new.
Well, look at that. I'm so glad to... You might get a kick out of Book of the New Sun, it is dense in a fun way. And there is character stuff.
It's sounding like Borges, and I like Borges quite a bit.
Yeah, that's a good comparison point. If you imagine Borges with a little less magical realism and a little bit more plot, but equally weird and interesting conceits. Anyway... Gene Wolfe's pretty great. He's a Catholic, and he's got some weird ideas about religion, some weird ideas about sex, some weird ideas about all kinds of things. So tread with caution. Now that I've introduced the concept of this person, be very careful about him. But if you're interested in the genre, he is one of the geniuses of 20th century speculative fiction, maybe the genius. And this story is this is him having fun. This is a very slight portrait of what he can do.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting.
There you go, folks. Hope that was some value for you. Book of the New Sun is the classic, which is actually 4 books in one. Shadow of the Torturer, Claw of the Conciliator, Sword of the Lictor, and Citadel of the Autarch.
Would you say that he's the great genius that people often give Frank Herbert credit for being?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say
I would like this one in a way that I didn't.
I would say you would get way more out of this.
Okay.
It's got an actual interesting character, interesting, unreliable, almost Joycean narrator. But
Okay.
anyway, all right. Well, folks, maybe
You got me intrigued.
Maybe we'll come back to Wolfe, but there's your scrap of
Goodies.
goodies for today.
Put it in your little trick-or-treat bag of goodies. You can go on to the next day where you can ring our doorbell tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have some other good bone-chilling tales for you.
I can't top that. See you tomorrow, folks.